Hello, and welcome to our Success Stories series hosted by GoLean6Sigma.com. My name is Elizabeth Swan, and I'm a managing partner and executive advisor here at GoLean6Sigma.com. We're very excited to have this offering for our audience because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we highlight someone who has actually completed a real project that's been implemented within their organization, and we get to share those stories with you. Today, we're going to highlight a project success story that comes from Cape Cod Child Development. Cape Cod Child Development is located in Massachusetts on Cape Cod. They take care of Cape Cod and the islands. For those of you that have ever heard of Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, that's part of their area. Their mission is to provide world-class child and family-focused programs that nurture each child's full potential. And their vision is taking care of Cape Cod's children and their families. Our presenter today is Lisa Donovan, and let me tell you a little bit about Lisa before we get started. Lisa is the Director of Family Advocacy here for the past year with Cape Cod Child Development. Before this, she was an investigator of elder abuse, and before that, she investigated child abuse for the Sheriff's Office. Lisa, clearly a champion of the vulnerable with decades of defending children in need. I asked Lisa for a little fun fact, and she told me she had taught her dog to dance. But he's too big for the dip. So that's an issue. I don't know where you're going with that, Lisa, but hopefully that you'll work with the dog. The two of you will work to overcome this.
Dancing with the canines.
So,
well, good morning. Thanks for having me today, Liz. I appreciate it. My project was to increase the homeless families receiving benefits at Cape Cod Child Development. So really my goal was to increase the number of homeless families here from 2 to 10 receiving these benefits by the end of 2018.
And what was going on at the time that would made it important to increase that level?
Well, we didn't have a lot of families self-identifying, and it was interesting as I went along in this process. This project really, it became more than just a project. It became something that really was very important to me, and I took it home with me every single day, and I thought about it during my rides to visit with families and visit with our family advocates. And what became so important to me was that I realized that I would be driving down the roads on Cape Cod heading toward my home. And they were roads I'd driven down hundreds of times, and I knew them so well. And I'd pull into my driveway, and I could hear my dog, barking when I got up to the door. And I'd open the door, and I could look around my home, and everything looked familiar to me. And when I got hungry or thirsty, I could open up my refrigerator or open up a cabinet, and I could get something to eat or drink anytime I wanted to. When I got tired, I could open up a bureau and not open up a suitcase or a trash bag, and I could take out my pajamas and go to sleep in my own bed. God willing, this will be a constant in my life for so many years, but this is what really became so important to me, was to ensure that our families had the same opportunities and the same benefits that many of us here at Cape Cod Child Development have.
That's really nice. It really brings it home and makes it real about what does it mean to be homeless and the things that you don't have.
Well, when we started off and I was looking, I didn't really know where to start this project. So I wanted to really see how many people had self-identified, and if there was a stumbling block or something was precluding them from being able to identify. So when I first started to look, I checked the baseline data, and I was realizing that as of June, when I began this process, we only had 2 families that self-identified as homeless. So that's where my goal came, to increase this up to 10 to 2018.
And I know that talking to you, part of your process walk was to actually accompany advocates as they went and visited families.
It was very important for me to see it. We've got right now I've got 6 family advocates, and what they do is they assist the families with every single thing that they can throughout their entire sojourn here with the Cape Cod Child Development. So they help the families with fuel assistance, with clothing, with food. But what was really important to me was to find out where they were living. And a lot of our families, if they don't self-identify, when we go into their home, we can tell by seeing what their home situation is if they are actually homeless and would qualify for benefits through Cape Cod Child Development and the McKinney-Vento Act. So that was really important for me to go out with the family advocates and actually see firsthand where our families were located.
And you said part of that you started noticing that people were not self-identifying as homeless but they actually were living with friends.
There's a lot with living with friends and family, and not really as a choice of their own accord, which makes it a little different. But when you're living with friends and family because you can't afford any housing, that's where you would qualify for more benefits as homeless.
Mm.
So a lot of our families are doubling, tripling up because there's really a lack of affordable housing on the Cape and the islands. It's very difficult to find housing. There aren't a lot of congregate homes, very few shelters, and primarily extraordinarily few family shelters. So we really only have a couple of those. So it was really important, for me to see where our families are.
Yeah, like a lot of other communities, the Cape has become a place where homes, real estate, rentals,
Hmm.
being able to purchase a home, the prices keep going up, and there's less and less affordable housing for even people who are not as in need, just trying to, work.
Exactly. And another concern is that with the rental situation on the Cape, a lot of it is seasonal. So our families have to leave in the summertime. So where do they go in the summertime? They may have to go to a place like a state park, motels that well they can't stay there for in the wintertime because the motels they don't qualify as a home. Our family they don't have any places to go. So that we've got families in tents in the summer, we've got families in parks in the summer, but what do they do in the winter? And then the prices are so astronomically high. That's why the families often have to double up.
Yeah, yeah, and change their where they are from month to month. So getting into your analysis.
So getting into my analysis, I wanted to really one of the first things I really wanted to look at was our enrollment application. And so I took a look at it, and honestly, I wasn't sure if it was a Head Start, of which we are, Cape Cod Child Development is a Head Start program. So I wasn't actually sure if the enrollment application was a Head Start regulation or if it was one of our own applications.
Mm.
So when I found out that it was one of ours, I approached our CEO, Ann Colwell, immediately and said, is there any way how do you feel about me changing this? She said, go for it without hesitation. So that was my first step, was to look at the enrollment application, and I'll show you what the previous one looked like in a moment or two. And but in looking at that enrollment application, it really didn't afford a lot of families the opportunity to self-identify.
And that's an interesting point when it comes down to pieces of the process, like what you discovered there was a form, and that question of who owns this.
Hmm.
And you guys deal with a lot of government regulations, you've
We
got a
do.
lot of policies you have to adhere to. And often if it's unclear, often it is unclear, is this part of a policy?
Exactly.
And that was such a great question, who owns this form? So I appreciate that.
So this is the original form. As you can see at the bottom, the question was, "Are you currently homeless?" Well, to me, that was it appeared very invasive. If I were a family, I'm not sure if I would have answered that immediately, and for myriad reasons. We have a lot of our families, they don't want to self-identify. There could be pride. There could be even a confusion about what is homeless. A lot of people don't even understand, as we just spoke about, living with family and friends is actually considered homeless. So this was the original form, and have you been homeless in the past 12 months? Well, in looking back through myriad applications, I was finding that either people weren't answering this at all, or they were just shying off to saying no. So that was something that I really wanted to delve into.
That's interesting that people didn't even answer it.
Right. Yeah, completely blank.
And
You
you
know,
don't know the motivations. And I know you learned a lot by going with the advocates and realizing, wow, they're saying no, but they're really tripling up with a friend here,
mhm,
and that's homeless.
mhm.
And it may be that combination of they don't even know the definition,
Correct.
or pride, or as you said, not wanting the information to come out.
So when I looked at this is just a sample of about 100 families. So I wanted to break down where most of our families fell in this in the line of their residency. And I found that the majority are renting, but that it doesn't mean that they're renting on their own. That could mean that two, three, four families are in a home all renting. We've got at one point we had one family owning, we had a family in a shelter, and just a couple that would identify as living with a family and friend.
Mm.
And that was my baseline of the two in June who identified as living as family and friends.
If a number of families were renting in a small space, would you have a designation for that, or is that still not considered homeless?
It depends upon the situation. Once again, if they are doing it, if they're choosing to rent, because they all want to live together and they're sharing things that they want to share. But if they are living because they have no other place to go and they have to stay there, they may not even be able to be pitching in any money. So I don't know if if the rent it's usually only one person is on the lease agreement.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure if the families are saying they're renting, what their contribution to rent is when you go into a home and you see two or three families living there.
Got it.
So this was where I identified that a lot of people, based on pride, as I said, one constituted being homeless. Why people weren't actually filling out the application itself. There's a possibility that a lot of problems were finding kids with getting their medical exams, and so they weren't able to enroll as quickly. That was one problem that we were having, and the medical could have been as simple as they have relocated here and they don't have a doctor. So our family advocates need to help them find a doctor, or there's a possibility they may not be documented and may not even have the means or any ability to even get to a doctor or how to even begin that process. So those are some of my root causes were why weren't people identifying? Was it pride? Was it fear? Such as the documentation aspect.
Right.
So some of the things that I wanted to do to impact this process for me was I joined a lot of different agencies or coalitions around the Cape, and actually I joined one that is off Cape. It's in it's in the middle of the southeast, and so it encompasses from Gloucester all the way down to New Bedford. And I wanted to join this coalition or task force, whatever you'd like to call it, because I wanted to ensure that if our families had to relocate off Cape, which none of us want them to do, this is where their supports are. This is usually where their family and friends are. As it stands right now, this is where their school is. So we don't want them to have to relocate, but if they don't have affordable housing and they can't find any place to stay, they may have to relocate. So in joining this, I wanted to be able to get some contact names. So at least I could point families in the right direction whenever they did, or ultimately if they had to move off Cape. I also am part of the Housing Authority's roundtable on the Cape, and I go to some other homeless coalitions as well. So those are some of the things that I am involved in on the Cape. I wanted to change the terminology of the application. As I stated, I felt that was just a little too invasive for our families. And I just wanted to ensure that our vision statement, which is so important, it's what we're all about. It's taking care of Cape Cod's children and families. I wanted to ensure that that remained so renowned in our community.
That's nice.
So yeah, this is the new form. So as you'll see down at the bottom, it gives our families now different options in order to answer what their residency is, whether they, own, rent, live with family, friends, motel, shelter. So this will give them the option. I'm finding more and more people are now filling this out as opposed to just leaving it blank. So this is one of the things that I spoke to, that I want to change the form and change the terminology, and just changing that terminology gives people it stops them from feeling labeled.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you turned it around. They're no longer having to decide for themselves whether they're homeless or not. And on top of that, you're getting more of that data you showed earlier, where you're trying to understand, do they own, do they rent, do they live with family and friends? Are they in a motel? Are they in a shelter? So you're getting helpful information about what's happening on the Cape with families. And that might direct some of what you do in the future. And joining all these organizations, you've clearly educated yourself incredibly on what's going on with the homeless population and what's happening, what are the trends, what's going to change.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really important to me to find out, where where Cape Cod is going. What are their plans for increasing affordable housing? Are there plans for future shelters, or are there plans for how many? I don't know the statistics, but when you're building a new apartment complex, how many need to be affordable? How many units are in the making? But Habitat for Humanity is another one. They're in contact with us every time there's a new home up, so we can share that with our families as well. So we have a lot of great partnerships around the Cape who are really trying to help our families who are struggling with this homeless concern.
That's great. You can hear kids having a good time right now.
Absolutely, you can. That's what it's all about. I wanted to make a checklist for our family advocates to ensure, strictly for families who did self-identify. So I wanted to ensure that they were getting the assistance that they needed right away, from getting to housing authorities, kids to fill out the applications for new housing. I wanted to find out what they needed for fuel assistance regulations immediately, what specialized funding they needed. In that regard, I'm talking about the quick, and it is a quick fix. It would be like the needy fund or a St. Vincent de Paul, maybe to pay a past electrical bill, a gas bill, or something just to keep their power on. I wanted to have the family advocates really understand and share with our families what their legal rights were, such as having a notice to quit that you don't have to vacate the premises immediately. And so we now have a housing court on the Cape, which is fabulous. So it's I believe it's one time a month, but prior to that, our families would go through district court. And while our judges are very well versed in criminal and civil matters, now our families will have a judge who is solely dedicated to tenant landlord disputes and resolution. So this is great. So I wanted to just ensure that our advocates utilized this and just went into every single family, and we didn't miss anything with any of our families.
This is great. So you educated the advocates and created this basically a checklist for them to make sure that they've thought of everything with each family. Because as you pointed out, sometimes there just really is not affordable housing, but what else can you do? And there's a lot.
Right. There is a lot. There is a lot. We can help them with job applications. We can help them not with just their essential needs such as fuel and food and clothing, but we can help them with English as a second language. There's a lot of things that our family advocates do on a daily basis to ensure our families and our kids here are as healthy as can be.
Yeah. The point you made about also the judges and what people are aware of and not aware of in terms of what people have as a potential advocate. Your background in the criminal justice system is paying off here, isn't it?
A smidge. It is. And plus, now our families will know that they have, at least when they go to court, there's always an attorney of the day. So that if they have any legal questions, we also work with, we have a partner agency here who comes monthly from We Can, and for any legal consultations for our families. So we're partnering more and more with different agencies around the Cape to ensure our families get all the benefits they can. But now they'll know that they also have another advocate in the court system as well, who is the attorney of the day to answer any questions.
Wow, a lot of partnerships. That's great.
A lot of partnerships. It is great. A lot of collaborations. This is my run chart, Liz. And when it started off in June, has now at the end of October increased to 8 families that had identified as being homeless. So it was nice to see that possibly with the new enrollment application form that rolled out in June, it is giving people the opportunity to feel a little more comfortable with, as you said, just putting point blank, where am I right now in my residency?
Are you also seeing the number of services increase? Because I know based on your work with the advocates, you identified this broad list of things that they can really provide families. Do you know that there's more of each of those being tapped in terms of, I don't know, they can have an advocate, they could get help with getting jobs, things like that?
Our family advocates, they're really, really passionate about helping every single family that comes through here. So while this was only one segment of and my specific Six Sigma process, our family advocates are working with our families on a daily basis to ensure they get every single thing that they need. They will set up medical and mental health appointments for them. They will help them, as I said, with they can help them with SNAP benefits. They can help them with different applications. So they're constantly assisting with our families with anything that they need, no matter what the need is. The family advocates are there.
But specifically, do you think the form you created increased the number of things advocates made the families aware of?
I think what it made them aware of, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that was a great bonus on our end, so we could really see where we could really assist the families in a more expeditious fashion.
That's wonderful. It was a great story.
So basically, some of my benefits and lessons learned were naturally to increase. Well, the most important thing was to increase the services offered to our families. I wanted to be able to join more task forces around the Cape and off Cape, as I stated, so I would know where to guide our advocates so they could assist our families. I really needed to have this process continue. This isn't something that was just for the months that I worked on this. This is something that will go on as long and far long after no longer in this particular role. I want this to ensure that our families, as each family comes through yearly, that they feel comfortable in speaking with us, feel comfortable in having an advocate and sharing with what their concerns and needs are, so we can help them and help sustain them in the Cape Cod community.
Nice.
It's wonderful. It really is a great. The collaborations on the Cape, for being such a small area, and everybody really works well together. You know, we're out. Everybody's there for the same reason. They're out there to really assist the families. Nobody's out there to make their name known. You're out there to make the families known.
Mm. Really nice. Really, really powerful project, powerful results. So if you think about other people in the nonprofit world and the kinds of things that you encountered in this project, what advice would you give in general to someone starting out like you did a year, earlier this year in learning Lean Six Sigma, applying it to your process? Any advice, general or specific for someone starting out
For someone starting in the nonprofit,
in a nonprofit world, trying to apply Lean Six Sigma in the nonprofit world?
I think it's really important to get to know each department that works within the nonprofit. That's where I started with here. Even before Six Sigma, I wanted to go around because I wasn't aware this is a completely different career for me than my past. So I wanted to ensure that in order for me to speak to and for our families, I needed to know what every department in the agency did. So it was really important for me, and I think it's important for anybody to get in right into the trenches and find out exactly what each department does and how they can what their process is to assist, and then take it from there.
Yeah, that's one of the foundational pieces of Lean Six Sigma, which is be a student of the process. And I think you were a student of the process and the people. You really tried to learn, what do you do, and who are the people that are doing it. And obviously that a huge impact in terms of what came out of this project.
It was a fascinating process. It really was. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I really would recommend anyone to take this and become a part of Six Sigma.
You really took this to heart. I mean, this project, I feel like it impacted you, in a big way. Like you said, you really this opened up your eyes.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Much more so, honestly, when I first started this, I wasn't really sure what to encounter. I really had no idea where this would lead. But you're absolutely right. It became such a part of what I do on a daily basis now.
Yeah.
And then just walking through it and coming back to it, and I'm using terminology from Six Sigma that I wouldn't think of.
Shocking.
Total.
Shocking. So what's next for you in process improvement?
I want to continue on our path here with the homeless. There are some other things that I want to revamp in our agency as well regarding the family advocates. We have a food pantry on our site. So I really want to revamp that because right now I have a concern that it may not be utilized by our families as much as it could be. And once again, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Oh, the question could be, is it pride? They don't feel comfortable coming here. I really need to delve into that because everything that I can do to assist our families here is going to just make it great for Cape Cod Child Development and everybody that comes here. So that's next in line.
That's a nice challenge. How to help the families make better use of the food pantry,
Mhm.
and like you said, the first questions you have are, why are they not using it?
Right.
Because could be a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
That's great. I'm Elizabeth Swan, and you're listening to a GoLean6Sigma.com success story highlighting Lisa Donovan and her work with the homeless here on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I want to thank Lisa for joining us today and sharing her success story. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining us today. I hope you found this success story helpful and inspirational, as I have. If you have a success story and you'd like to share, send us a note at contact@golean6sigma.com. Don't forget to go to our website and view our other success stories. We're going to have a whole series on nonprofit world. We have a series on work in government, and we keep adding every day. So download any free tool templates. We've got all kinds of blogs, podcasts, and tools for you on our website. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.